Tonight we're really lucky because we're going to be hearing from Richard Di Natale, leader of the Australian Greens, and from Jason himself as to actually how winnable Higgins is. It's a really exciting time, but actually while Higgins is extremely winnable, it can't be won without your support. And today, as much as it is about connecting and celebrating and building hope, it's about building resources as well. And so we're calling on every person in this room to commit to supporting Jason's campaign by contributing to the fundraising platform. This is how you can donate. You can see here that lovely Margie Abbott's gotten us started. She's a big fan. So you can text 0480 015 569, share your name and your donation amount, and we're hoping to actually, I know we can and we will, raise this figure of $7,443, which will procure a billboard representing Jason and representing the campaign. I want to point out that Jason is up against some, well-resourced competition. We may as well be honest about it because we know that it's true. And this isn't just about creating a billboard to represent Jason, it's about representing the values that he stands for and that this community stands for. So every time someone looks at that billboard, they know that there is an option. They know that the right option is to vote Greens on May 18th. I'm really excited now to have the opportunity to introduce the first of our speakers tonight. I'm just going to jump straight to it. You ready to go? Cool. Really thrilled to welcome the leader of the Australian Greens, Richard Di Natale. Give it up.
G'day everybody. Let me begin by acknowledging that we stand here on Aboriginal land. I want to acknowledge the traditional owners and pay respects to elders past and present. Acknowledge that we are here on stolen land and that sovereignty of this land was never ceded. Acknowledge that we have so much unfinished business, and we commit wholeheartedly to achieving justice for First Nations people. We need sovereignty in treaties. We need a strong Aboriginal voice in our parliament. We need to make sure that decisions made for Aboriginal people are made by Aboriginal people working with Aboriginal people, and we commit absolutely to making sure that we address that unfinished business. I'm really thrilled to be here tonight. I mean, at its best, politics gives you something to believe in. Politics shines a light on society, and we ask ourselves the difficult questions. What does it mean to live a good life? How do we live with each other? How do we live with the world around us? How do we make sure that we leave this place in better shape for future generations? And we Greens have been asking those questions, leading that debate for decades now in this state. At the last election, we took our plan to the people of Australia, and 1.5 million people voted Greens. 1.5 million people voted for the Greens at the last election. They voted for us because they want a genuine alternative to politics as usual. They think the system is broken and they believe in us. And we've delivered for them. Look at what we achieved through the course of the last parliament. We got marriage equality over the line. Something that the Greens have campaigned on for decades, have supported with every single vote in every parliament across the country every time. We were told it was a fringe issue, and we made sure that every Australian understood it was an issue of decency and equality, and we got it over the line. We still have more work to do, but we delivered for people. We got a banking royal commission. Both parties opposing it at every turn, and after years of advocacy from the Greens, we got it done. Jordan Steele-John, our senator from WA, single-handedly got a Royal Commission into the disability sector. He walked into the Parliament, he looked at Scott Morrison, he called him out, and within a few days, the government announced a Royal Commission into the disability sector. We've got so much done through this course of Parliament. We've been campaigning against corruption for decades. We first came up with the idea of a national anti-corruption watchdog decades ago. It's now major party policy. Bob Brown first introduced it into the parliament when he was leader. We were told it would never happen, and now we've got both parties signed on to a national anti-corruption watchdog. We delivered funding for land care. We got medicinal cannabis, at least a conversation going. We've got some people getting access to it. We need to do more. We started a national conversation about illicit drugs and pill testing and treating it as a health issue, not a law and order issue. When we were told it was too difficult, too controversial, you can't touch it. We have been leading the national debate on so many issues for so long. And we're now seeing the coalition fracture on the single most important issue facing humanity: how to deal with catastrophic climate change. It's an issue that's tearing the coalition apart. As I said earlier, the Labor Party might be dragging their heels on it, but the Liberals are dragging their knuckles on it. We have single-handedly, through our work in the Parliament, ensured that this is now front and centre in this election campaign. And you know what? The community is with us. And going into this election, we're the only party with a serious plan to tackle climate change. Firstly, we're dealing with the single biggest contributor to climate change, which is coal. Coal is the single biggest cause of climate change. So if you don't have a plan to deal with coal, you've got no climate change plan. We've got a plan to transition out of coal, into renewables, electric vehicles, hydrogen economy, exports, 180,000 new jobs if we do this right. If we recognise that if we start tackling multinational tax avoidance, if we had a price on carbon, if we ensured we stopped those massive handouts to big polluters, if we ensured that people who are earning millions of dollars started paying tax, we have the opportunity to invest in all of those things and create the foundations of a decent society. So that's what we are here to do. That's what we're here to do. Now, we are facing an election that will be fought on the issue of climate change. I was looking at some of the numbers around the state, and it's interesting. You know, in Higgins, more people care about climate change as their number one issue than in any other electorate in the state. I read a piece in the Fin Review, and it was an unnamed, you know those unnamed Liberal sources? This was an unnamed Liberal MP who said, don't worry about Higgins, we're going to win Higgins because rich people ultimately vote for money. This was a Liberal politician talking about Liberal voters. This is the contempt with which the government treats the people who have supported them. Well, I actually think the people in Higgins care about their kids, their grandkids, and want to make sure that there's a safe and stable climate, because they understand that without a safe and stable climate, you don't have a strong economy. So we have climate change front and centre of this election campaign. We're going to be fighting against, you know, some pretty cashed up opposition. Got the Liberals, take those massive corporate donations, you know, $8 million to the Liberal and Labor Party from the coal, oil and gas industry. Look, Higgins is a seat that belongs to Prime Ministers and Treasurers. Now, there is one thing that will reverberate on election night like nothing else. If this seat falls to a Green, the message that not just in Higgins, not just in Victoria, but right around the country, that will be delivered loud and clear to the Liberal Party is, you guys need to get serious about this. You guys need to understand that if you keep dragging your heels, if you keep doing the bidding of your big coal donors, you don't have a future in politics anymore in this country. That's what a victory in Higgins means. So we have that within our hands. We've got the people-powered movement. We've got climate change as our key issue. And most importantly, we have got such an outstanding candidate. Jason Ball's... Jason, I've known Jason for a number of years now. Jason is a man of deep integrity, a man of... He's intelligent. He's actually... Sometimes when we stand up and do a press conference, He makes me feel a bit inadequate. And so I don't like doing press conferences with Jason. But he's somebody who'll make an outstanding contribution to the Australian Parliament. And God knows we need some more decent people in that joint. So you have the power, you have it at your fingertips to elect somebody who's going to really shake up Parliament, who's going to send a very clear message that politics as usual is over, that the old rules no longer apply, that we now have Greens in Liberal seats, and it's only a matter of time before the Greens actually take over that place. So without any further ado, let me introduce to you all the next member for Higgins, Jason Ball.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you. I just want to say how much of an honour it is to call Richard Di Natale the leader of our party. Thank you so much for being here tonight to kick off our campaign to turn Higgins green. Round of applause for Richard. And can I get you to keep that applause going for our incredible MC, Lucy Thomas? Thank you. You are amazing. Thank you to everyone who has donated tonight. Thank you all for being here.
Keep it coming.
We can go for number 2. I want to start with a story of why I'm standing before you tonight as your Greens candidate for Higgins. It's a story that shows how individual actions can act as a catalyst for change. It starts when I was a kid, growing up in a country town high in the hills above the Yarra Valley. Every morning before I walked out the door, my mum would ask me, "What are you going to do today to try and change the world?" My mum's just over here in the corner there. I was only a kid, but I was absolutely convinced in that optimistic, cheerful way that I could change the world. I started small, I was only 10, and I roped my parents into helping me pick up rubbish that people had thrown out of their car windows onto our street. I organised fundraisers for overseas aid programs, acutely aware that I'd won life's lottery by being born into a wealthy country. I was driven by the fundamental belief that although I was only one person, that I could do my bit to make the world a better place. But then I started high school and it all stopped. I became convinced that it wasn't the world that needed changing, it was me. I was 12 years old when I figured out that I was gay. And at the time, I thought that this was the worst possible thing that I could be. On the playground and on the football fields, the word gay was used to mean bad, or weak, or stupid, or disgusting. I internalized that. I thought that's what other people would think about me. My journey to self-acceptance was gradual, but it was absolute. I came to the realization that if I only live one time, I may as well be proud of who I am and not worry so much about what other people think of me. And in the end, most people didn't think less of me. My friends accepted me, my family accepted me, even my football teammates accepted me. I began to think how much heartache I could have been spared if I'd seen someone like me growing up. What I'd needed was a role model, someone who was out and proud, particularly in the macho world of football, which had been the hardest place for me to come out. And that was when I realised that the social change that I had been so passionate about as a young person was in my hands. In 2012, I shared my story and became the first openly gay male Aussie rules player at any level of the game to come out in the national media. I used that platform to drive cultural change. I used this platform to drive cultural change in the AFL, leading to their now annual Pride game, and I co-founded the non-profit startup Pride Cup Australia. Pride Cup's vision is a world where LGBTIQ people feel included and accepted, and we are leveraging the power of sport to get us there. As a symbol of how far we've come, just last month we saw 10 CEOs from Victoria's major sporting codes sign our Pledge of Pride, committing to enact education and policy change to ensure that LGBTIQ people are safe and welcome in their codes. This was something in the hyper-masculine world of sport that I was told would never happen in my lifetime. But we made it happen. And it started with one person. One person building a grassroots movement from the community up. And that is what we are building right here in Higgins. And that's how we can change the direction of this country. And we must change direction in this country. As the young climate activist Greta Thunberg points out, we need to act as if our house is on fire because it is. Now is not the time to sit on the sidelines and hope that someone else will step up. I'm stepping up to run for the Greens because I believe that our grassroots movement can drive positive change in this country. Our community here in Higgins are united by the shared values of compassion, integrity, and care for our environment. But those values are not being reflected by our federal parliament. The people afforded the privilege of representing us have forgotten that their job is to listen to the will of the people, to elevate our voices, to ensure that the public good is the foundational driver of every decision they make. Instead, they have degraded the dignity of the office they are supposed to serve by handing a megaphone to the fossil fuel companies, property developers, pokies barons, big banks, and gun lobbyists who fund their election campaigns. For years, these same politicians have sown the seeds of hatred and fear and division in the most calculated, ruthless, and cynical strategies to win votes at all costs. They have diminished us as a nation and then asked us to expect that they hold no responsibility for the acts of violence that are the logical conclusion to the hate speech that they have legitimised. To those politicians, I say this: you do not represent us. You do not speak for us, and you have forfeited your right to lead this country. We deserve so much better, and if the people in charge can't deliver it, then get out of the way because we are ready for change. There is a movement that is sweeping the globe, that is built on optimism, on connection, on a passion for progress and community. It is a drumbeat for change that we are hearing on the doorsteps of Higgins and in the businesses and the cafes of our suburbs. You can hear it in the voices of the children who are taking to the streets, demanding that our politicians stop gambling away their futures and take action on climate change. As the anthropologist Margaret Mead famously once said, never doubt that a small group of committed, thoughtful citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. Look around this room at your friends and your neighbours. These are the people with the power to change the direction of our country. So my question to all of you tonight is the same one that my mum asked me all those years ago. What are you going to do today to change the world? Now is the time. This is the campaign. Together, we can make history. I hope you'll join me. Thank you.
So hopefully by the end of tonight, We can be a little bit more like, you get a billboard, you get a billboard, everybody gets a billboard! And we can take Jason Ball to Jason Ballin. Please do give generously. Thank you so much for showing up on a Friday night. Thank you for your generous support. My name's Lucy Thomas and I support Jason Ball, and I know that every single person in this room does. Thank you.
And now what we're going to do is everyone puts their